Hi, I'm Rashonda Cade. This is Reading with Rashonda. We are reading Behind the Scenes by Elizabeth Keckley. We continue to be on chapter 15, where we will just remain for some time. I think today's reading is going to be kind of short. I don't know, I'm kind of tired, but I'm just looking to make sure we're still on chapter 15. I'm not paying attention to you. Yeah, it's still chapter 15. Oh, that's right, because it's chapter 15 for the rest of the book. I don't know. I'm kind of not feeling it right now, but I was like, oh, they're going to get a reading I haven't posted, and I'm not going to miss a Friday launch of a reading. So, chapter 15, and yeah, maybe the reading will make me get out of whatever kind of funk I'm in. I put on a new jacket, like maybe putting on a new jacket will help me feel good. Anyway, um, let's dive in. So many erroneous reports were circulated that I made a correct statement to one of the editors of the New York Evening News. The article, based upon the memoranda furnished by me, appeared in the News of October 12, 1867. I reproduce a portion of it in this connection. Mrs. Lincoln feels sorely aggrieved at many of the harsh criticisms that have been passed upon her for traveling incognito. She claims that she adopted this course from motives of delicacy, desiring to avoid publicity. While here, she spoke to but two former acquaintances and these two gentlemen whom she met on Broadway. Hundreds passed her who had courted her good graces when she reigned supreme at the White House, but there was no recognition. It was not because she had changed much in personal appearance, but was merely owing to the heavy crape veil that hid her features from view. She seeks to defend her course while in this city, with much force, too, adverting to the fact that the Empress of France frequently disposes of her cast off wardrobe, and publicly, too, without being subjected to any unkind remarks regarding its propriety. She claims the same immunity here as is accorded in Paris to Eugenie. As regards her obscurity while in this city, she says that foreigners of note and position frequently come to our stores and under assumed names travel from point to point throughout our vast domain to avoid recognition and the inconveniences resulting from being known, though it even be in the form of honors. For herself, she regards quiet preferable to ostentatious show, which would have cost her much indirectly, if not directly, and this she felt herself unable to bear, according to the measure of her present state of finances. Her note keeps going, but I see what she's saying. Lots of people travel incognito. Lots of people sell their old clothes. So why is everybody looking so harshly at Mrs. Lincoln? I'll keep reading. In a recent letter to her bosom friend, Mrs. Elizabeth Keckley, oh, now she's writing about herself in the third person. This is hilarious to me. I love me some Mrs. Keckley. In a recent letter to her bosom friend, Mrs. Elizabeth Keckley, Mrs. Lincoln pathetically remarks, Elizabeth, if evil come from this, pray for my deliverance as I did it for the best. This referred to her action in placing her personal effects before the public for sale, and to the harsh remarks that had been made thereon by some whom she had formerly regarded as her friends. Oh, mm, that just reminded me of a super sad thing I heard from a student once. I won't go into it, but the student was talking about people who she thought were her friends, but it turned out that they were not. Mm. As to the articles which belong to Mr. Lincoln, they can all be accounted for in a manner satisfactory even to an overcritical public. During the time Mr. Lincoln was in office, he was the recipient of several canes. After his death, one was given to the Honorable Charles Sumner, another to Frederick Douglass, another to the Reverend H. H. Garnett of this city, and another to Mr. William Slade, the present steward of the White House, who, in Mr. Lincoln's lifetime, was his messenger. This gentleman also received some of Mr. Lincoln's apparel, among which was his heavy gray shawl. Several other of the messengers employed about the White House came in for a share of the deceased president's effects. The shepherd plaid shawl which Mr. Lincoln wore during the milder weather, and which was rendered somewhat memorable as forming part of his famous disguise, together with the Scotch cap, when he wended his way secretly to the Capitol to be inaugurated as president, was given to Dr. Abbott of Canada, who had been one of his warmest friends. During the war, this gentleman, as a surgeon in the United States Army, was in Washington in charge of a hospital, and thus became acquainted with the head of the nation. His watch, his penknife, his gold pencil, and his glasses are now in possession of his son Robert. Nearly all else than these few things have passed out of the family, as Mrs. Lincoln did not wish to retain them, but all were freely given away, and not an article was parted with for money. That's an interesting to tell and go on and on and on about. Where does this end? My goodness. Not the chapter, just this part that she posted in the paper. Wow, it goes on for another 2 pages. I don't have it in me, y'all. I don't have it in me. So we're gonna stop there. I'm Rashonda K. This is Reading with Rashonda. We are reading Behind the Scenes by Elizabeth Keckley. Until next time.